children is to shame. Israeli apartheid is to blame. Arresting children is a shame. Shooting children is a crime. From Ferguson to Palestine. Shooting children is a crime. From Ferguson to Palestine. Shooting children is a crime. From Ferguson to Palestine. Shooting children is a crime. From Ferguson to Palestine. Shooting children is a crime. From Ferguson to Palestine.
Very upset that the U.S. government gives $3.8 billion per year in unconditional aid, no strings attached to Israel to do what it wants as it continues to grossly violate the rights of not only the Palestinian children, but of Palestinian people in general.
It's absurd that we even need to protest this issue and ask Delgado to sign on to children's rights. It brings me to House Resolution 2590 and the reason we're all here today. Basically, this House resolution tells Israel not to use any of the $3.8 billion a year of our taxpayer money to target children. We've petitioned Antonio Delgado, we've written to him individually, we've written to him collectively, yet he refuses to join the 29 other representatives in co-sponsoring HR 2590. Why is protecting the rights of Palestinian children and asking Israel not to break international law such a contentious issue for Representative Delgado?
That's right.
I'm certain it has nothing to do with the tens of thousands of dollars he accepts from Zionist lobbies every year. We're here to tell Antonio Delgado that we, his constituents, don't want our taxpayer money to end up in the legs, the arms, the eyes, the chests of Palestinian children. We're here to say, co-sponsor HR 2590, or come next election season, we'll vote for someone who will.
We're here to ask Congressman Delgado, do Palestinian lives matter?
Yes.
I want you to say their names. Mohammed Bar, 17. Mohammed Bar! 17. Hala al-Dawah, 12. Osama al-Hadidi, 5. Yahya Iskantana, 4. Tur al-Zamani, 2. Miriam Abdul Hattab, 7.
Abdurrahman al-Hadidi, 7.
Muhammad Zain and Amira al-Attar, 9 months and 6.
Kusai al-Khalik, 6 months.
Lena Isa, 13.
Butaina Obaid, 6.
Yusuf Abu Hattab, 10.
Yes? What do we got?
Sahib al-Haddad, 2.
Sayyid al-Khalak, 8. Ahmad al-Hawadini, 14.
Khaled Al-Ganu, aged 17.
Dima Asayal, age 10. Bara Al-Garabli, age 5.
Bilal Abu Hattab, age 9.
Lagan Salha, 2 years old. Hi everyone, thank you for being here today. All these pictures that are in front of you are pictures of children who were killed in Gaza last May. I want to show you some pictures of some other children and let you know what's happening in the West Bank, another part of Palestine. Children are being tortured, murdered. Is this better? Children in the West Bank are being tortured and murdered as well. It's hard to hold the mic and show the pictures. Thank you, Margie. This is Imad. He was 15 years old. 2 weeks ago, he and his brother heard gunshots at 3 a.m. in the morning. They went up on their roof to inspect what was happening. They live in the refugee camp Balata near Nablus. Ahmad pulled out his cell phone to record the Israeli soldiers who were on a search and arrest raid. He was shot in the head immediately. His brothers tried to get him to the hospital. They were unable to do so because of checkpoints and tear gas. It took hours to get him there. When he arrived at the hospital, he was pronounced dead. You might remember Darnella Frazier, the young woman who recorded the murder of George Floyd. Darnella was given an honorary Pulitzer. Ahmad, attempting to document the abuse of police in his village, was given a shot in the head. This is Tarak. Thank you. Also 15, living in the West Bank. 12 days ago, he went with his friends to have a picnic near his village. It happened to be a former Israeli settlement, but it had been evacuated in 2005. They were enjoying themselves when all of a sudden they were approached by settlers. They noticed one of them was carrying a handgun. His friends ran. He was captured. He was run down by the car. He was tied to the hood of the car. He was then hung by a tree and his feet were burned. And he was beaten until he was unconscious. Thankfully, he survived. Okay? So, this is what we call a lynching in the United States. Israeli settlers are issued firearms even though they're civilians. These are issued by the Israeli government, the same government we fund with the $3.8 billion you've been hearing about. And just like the extreme right wing in our country, these settlers are ultra-nationalists, and they manifest their beliefs with extreme violence against Palestinians, including children with impunity. How? Thank you. Because despite living in the same territory, Palestinians in the West Bank are subject to Israeli military law, whereas Israeli settlers living in the same community, illegally I might add, in Jewish-only communities built on Palestinian land, are subject to the Israeli civilian system. 700 children have already been detained annually with no due process. They are interrogated without their families or an attorney present, ripped from their homes in the middle of the night, charged with throwing stones, which can carry a sentence of up to 10 years. Once in prison, they are often detained and placed in solitary confinement. This is a tool of control and intimidation. H.R. 2590 says no more U.S. funding to the Israeli government for the imprisonment and torture of these children. No more theft and destruction of Palestinian homes and property. No further annexation of Palestinian land. This legislation couldn't come at a more critical moment. COVID-19 has exposed all the injustices nationally and across the globe, intensifying the harms of state violence and discrimination. Israel is no exception. During the pandemic, the Israeli government actually escalated its demolition of homes and its imprisonment of children. At a time when we're asked to stay at home, the Israeli government is making it impossible for these families to do so. So now is the time, Congressman Delgado. You were the original co-sponsor of the Justice Policing Act for Comprehensive Police Reform. And I quote you, Congressman, if you want to change training practices and the use of force policy to prevent unjust outcomes, then you need to vote for officials who will make these changes and negotiate contracts that bring real accountability. His words. And if you want national leaders with the moral courage to lead with compassion and love, rather than cowardly fear-mongering designed to fan the flames of hate and division, then you must vote for those leaders. Well, Congressman, you have not earned my vote. So now, if you oppose widespread physical violence, forced confessions, denial of due process, and other abuses that the Israeli forces inflict on Palestinian children, Delgado, what are you willing to do about it?
That's right. That's right.